Mrs. Brenner, are you all right?" Edith Brenner forced her lips into what she hoped was a reassuring smile, though her mind reeled at the scene unfolding in the community centre's converted auditorium. Moments earlier, the Oak Hollow Fashion Review, her sewing circle's pride and joy, proceeds earmarked for the public library, had pulsed with applause and camera flashes. Now, instead of celebratory chatter, the hall echoed with coughing and frightened murmurs. In the middle of the runway lay 18-year-old Lily Hathaway, the circle's youngest protégée, dress of shimmering marigold puddled around her unmoving form. Edith's treasurer, Doris Lake, clutched Edna's arm. She just fell, President. One moment she twirled, next she was on the boards. "I saw," Edith said, voice hoarse. She waded forward, mindful of panicked guests retreating to the walls, and knelt beside Lily. The girl breathed, but shallowly. Her pulse fluttered like a caught moth. A medic from the volunteer fire department, called from the lobby, skidded next to Edith with an emergency kit. Edith backed away, hands flexing, mind tallying fragmented impressions. Lily's gasp after her second pirouette. The droplet of blood staining the dress's left side, where fabric brushed her skin. The faint metallic smell that didn't belong to the aroma of hairspray or perfume. Within minutes, the first siren screamed across Maple Street. Paramedics lifted Lily onto a stretcher, ivy already threaded into her arm. Mayor Sundstrom, attending on behalf of the library board, whispered into his phone. Spectators, uncertain whether to disperse, hung around in loose knots. Cameras flashed again, now for bleaker reasons. Edith inhaled and rubbed a palm across her temples, smearing the hairspray that kept her silver curls smooth. She had organized 27 reviews without incident. Tonight's was to have been her crowning achievement before she stepped down as president of the Pleasant Needles Sewing Circle. She'd even convinced the county museum to loan an antique hand-crank singer for display, the machine gleaming under a glass dome near the entrance. Its presence was meant to celebrate the town's textile heritage. Instead, tragedy intruded. Sheriff Ben Fisher arrived, hat in hand. "Edith, any idea what happened?" "All I saw was Lily stumble, then collapse," Edith answered. "She's never had a fainting spell. She's strong as an ox." "Did she eat anything unusual backstage?" Edith shook her head. "Same sandwiches and lemonade we all shared." Fisher looked grim. "The hospital will run tests. I'll need to secure the area. Guests can go, but I'd like to speak with the sewing circle tomorrow morning." Edith murmured assent. The night dissolved into statements, phone calls, and chairs being folded. Finally, at 11:30, Edith locked the auditorium doors. She told herself to drive straight home, brew chamomile, and rest. Instead, clutching the keys, she drifted toward the glass dome housing the singer. Her reflection overlapped the machine's ornate decals. The crank handle was frozen mid-arc, a spool of dusty thread still perched atop the pillar. Something glinted between presser-foot and feed-dogs. The sewing needle, original Victorian steel, polished for tonight's exhibit. Edith frowned. When she'd overseen the display setup that afternoon, the needle had seemed dull with age. Now it gleamed, the tip darker than the shaft as though wetted. She remembered Lily brushing fingertips across the glass, marveling at the craftsmanship. Lily loved antiques. A ripple of unease ran over Edith's shoulders. She reached toward the dome, then hesitated, touching a museum piece after hours felt like sacrilege. Yet the image of Lily's pallor steeled her. She lifted the dome gingerly. Cool air washed over the machine. Under the fluorescent exit lights, the needle's tip resolved into a smear of greenish residue. Edith's throat tightened. Years ago, as a student lab assistant, she had catalogued reagents. Verdigris? No, the sheen was subtler, almost oily. Memories surfaced. Professor Harville speaking of alkaloid toxins from rare rainforest vines, their crystalline powders dissolving into faint green stains under moisture. She'd dismissed it then as academic exotica. But that lecture included a caution. Some alkaloids caused sudden cardiovascular collapse, leaving minimal external trauma. Lily's collapse. Edith snatched her phone, snapped a photo, and covered the singer again. She locked the side door behind her, wheels in her mind spinning faster than the autumn wind that swirled leaves across the parking lot. The next morning, the hospital rang. Lily remained unconscious, heart rate erratic, blood pressure perilously low. Preliminary toxicology flagged possible neurotoxic alkaloids, though the lab needed confirmation. Edith stood at her kitchen sink, cup of coffee cooling, stomach clenched. She had to tell Sheriff Fisher about the residue, yet she dreaded sounding like a paranoid elder clinging to rumors. But truth trumped pride. She dialed Fisher. "I found something on the antique sewing machine. A smear on the needle. Looks chemical." A pause. "You're certain?" "I studied chemistry years ago. The needle didn't have that stain earlier. It might explain Lily's condition." "I'll send Deputy Martinez and a forensic tech to collect the machine. Don't touch anything else." Relief mingled with dread. Edith glanced at the wall clock. 9. The sewing circle was due at 10 for their debrief. The timing pressed. She arrived at the community centre early, encountered Deputy Martinez in latex gloves, sealing the singer inside an evidence container. The deputy's expression was grave. "Preliminary swab shows presence of a compound related to curare," Martinez whispered. "We'll know more later." Curare, jungle blowgun poison, Edith recalled. Absorbed through wounds, causing paralysis. A prick from a contaminated needle could deliver enough to drop a grown person. Lily must have nicked herself while examining the machine before stepping onto the runway, perhaps tugging the hem of her dress, unmindful of the tiny danger. Wardrobe pre-show. Edith's gaze sharpened. That meant whoever laced the needle did so expecting someone backstage to touch it, or specifically Lily. But Lily was a last-minute replacement for another model who caught the flu. Only the Sewing Circle members knew the lineup change. At 10 sharp, the rest filed into the meeting room. Doris with a box of tissues, Bethany Crowder clacking heels, shy Margaret Holm clutching her ledger, and flamboyant Cecil Drake, honorary member and costume designer, his scarf trailing a scent of bergamot. Sheriff Fisher followed, notebook ready. Edith cleared her throat. "Ladies, Mr. Drake, thank you for coming. The sheriff has news." Fisher kept it succinct. "Evidence suggests Lily was poisoned by contact with the antique sewing machine needle. We're treating this as criminal. I must ask where each of you was between 5 and 6 yesterday evening when the machine was displayed backstage before moving to the lobby." A hush fell. Doris stammered, "I was arranging the refreshment table." Bethany crossed her arms. "I was fitting my niece's gown in dressing room 3. Margaret whispered, "I was reconciling ticket sales at the cashier booth." Cecil tossed his scarf. "I, darlings, was steaming the velvet capes near the boiler room." Fisher made notes. "Did anyone touch the singer?" Edith admitted. "I opened the crate at 4 to verify the loan, then locked the display." Margaret lifted a timid hand. I dusted the glass around 5:30. I never lifted the dome. No confession emerged. Fisher dismissed them, but asked each not to leave town. Conversation erupted in worried fragments as they dispersed. Edith remained seated, processing. Someone poisoned that needle during the narrow window before 7, when attendees arrived. Which of her friends carried a rare toxin and motive? Back home, she pulled out the Sewing Circle's event files. Lily wasn't originally slated. The flu had sidelined Marissa Crowder, Bethany's niece. Could Bethany have plotted revenge against someone else, only for Lily to suffer accidentally? But Bethany was self-involved, not malicious, though she'd fought with Marissa's ex-boyfriend 2 months prior. Yet how would she source exotic curare? Edith thought of Cecil and his globe-trotting escapades. He often regaled them with tales from Peru, where he'd purchased bright textiles and curiosities. Curare hailed from South America. A jolt of dread rippled. She forced herself to gather facts. Metadata. Cecil arrived at 2 with a garment rack. Could he have slipped poison then? But why target Lily? Unless he wanted the show to collapse, making himself indispensable to revive future events. Speculation churned uselessly. Edith needed evidence. She visited Lily's mother at the hospital, offering support and gleaning timelines. Lily had arrived at 4 for hair, then peeked at the singer around 6:30. She'd pricked herself, joking about old needles biting back, washed the dot of blood, dismissed it. No other models touched the machine. On her drive home, Edith detoured to Cecil's studio on Sycamore Lane. The converted carriage house brimmed with bolts of brocade. Cecil greeted her with forced cheer. "Edith, dear, dreadfully ghastly business. Poor Lily." "I'm hunting clarity," Edith said. "Mind if I look around? The circle needs inventory of costumes." "By all means." He swept a theatrical hand. Edith's eyes scanned shelves, a chaotic wonderland of fabrics, dyes, and vintage sewing machines. On a side table lay a wooden box etched with jaguars, the kind hawked in Amazon tourist stalls. Within, tangled jewelry green with copper. But beneath, a small glass vial nestled in cotton. She lifted it, the label worn, read, "Wurari extract." Her pulse quickened, another name for curare. Behind her, floorboards creaked. "Ah, souvenirs," Cecil said softly. Edith turned. His smile appeared stiff. "Picked that up years ago. Quite inert now, I assure you. Lost potency." "Did you bring it to the auditorium?" "Good heavens, no. It stays here, purely a conversation piece." Edith replaced the vial, heart pounding. She could call Sheriff Fisher, but if Cecil was innocent, the discovery might derail reputations. She needed chain of custody, not conjecture. "Thank you, Cecil. I'll let myself out," she murmured. Outside, crisp air hit her lungs. Was Cecil foolishly keeping an antique poison, or hiding in plain sight? She visited Bethany next. The Crowder home, Victorian trim freshly repainted, smelled of lemon polish. Bethany poured tea, hands trembling. As they talked, Edith noted a stack of travel magazines featuring Brazil. Bethany caught her gaze. "Planning a honeymoon," Bethany explained. "Glenn proposed last month. We delayed the news after Marissa took ill." "Congratulations," Edith said. "Did you two ever visit South America?" Bethany laughed. "Only in my dreams. I've never been farther than Florida." Cross Bethany off the import list, Edith thought, though mail-order toxins existed, but motive still lacked. Margaret Holm was next, living alone with her elderly beagle. Margaret admitted fear of needles, avoiding machines altogether. Edith believed her. Doris, dependable treasurer, lacked travel history, and kept no secrets unless counting fudge brownie recipes, so evidence pointed back to Cecil. Yet Edith's gut whispered complication. She returned home, pored over timelines again. Cecil steamed velvet near the boiler at 5:30. The singer remained backstage until 6:40, when Edith and 2 volunteers carted it to the lobby. If Cecil poisoned the needle before 5:30, anyone else touching it afterward could have been victim. Stagehands, volunteers. The fact only Lily pricked herself suggested the saboteur knew models liked to test vintage machines. Maybe Lily was intentional. But why would Cecil harm the group's darling? Edith called Sheriff Fisher, relayed the vile discovery. The sheriff obtained a warrant, seized it, and sent Cecil for questioning. Town gossip erupted. Yet lab results surprised everyone. The vial's residue, though once curare, had degraded, potency nil. Meanwhile, swabs from the singer needle contained an alkaloid derivative synthesized, not plant extracted, a modern laboratory yield. That pointed to someone with chemical knowledge. Edith's stomach dropped. She herself possessed that background. So did only one other member. Doris Lake, before raising 3 sons, had been a pharmaceutical chemist specializing in anesthetics. Edith replayed the evening anew. Doris at the refreshment table, right beside the backstage entrance where the singer sat on a pedestal awaiting transfer. Refreshments started at 5. Doris had unfettered proximity. But motive? Doris adored Lily. Unless Lily stood between Doris and something crucial. Money. The fundraiser's ledger. Edith consulted the event budget. Ticket revenue soared thanks to Lily's social media promotion. Proceeds meant Doris, as treasurer, handled tens of thousands before remitting to the library. Could she be embezzling, fearing discovery by Lily, who volunteered to audit? Lily had volunteered last week, citing her college accounting class. Edith's heart hammered. She rang Fisher, proposing they verify bank records. But a sense of loyalty warred with suspicion. She decided to speak to Doris first. It was dusk when she parked at the Lakes farmhouse. Doris greeted her on the porch, cardigan wrapped tight. "You must think the worst," Doris said before Edith spoke. "I'm here to listen," Edith replied. Inside, the dining table overflowed with paperwork. Bank statements, donation logs, checks. Edith recognized the sewing circle's accounts. Tears rimmed Doris's eyes. "I planned to resign after transferring funds, but then everything happened." She produced her own ledger. Numbers matched the master list. No missing money. "I haven't stolen a cent," Doris whispered. "I loved Lily like a granddaughter." "Then help me understand." Edith gently placed a hand over Doris's. Doris inhaled. Marissa Crowder teased Lily relentlessly about her thrift store clothes. Yesterday, Lily confided she planned to model the marigold gown to prove you didn't need designer labels. I wanted her to shine. I decorated the refreshment table, saw the antique singer unattended. I polished its decals for photographs. Didn't notice any residue. Edith studied her friend's face. Sincerity radiated. Still, opportunity remained, but impetus did not. She left, mind churning. Back home, she stitched patchwork while considering each angle. The synthesized toxin origin still gnawed. Who possessed a modern lab? Oak Hollow had no pharma factory, but the college 20 miles away did, including a graduate assistant program where one member's daughter worked. Bethany's niece, Marissa, studied biochemistry. She'd missed the show due to flu. But what if the illness was feigned? What if Lily's substitution threatened Marissa's moment, pushing her to sabotage? Marissa certainly carried resentment over Lily winning last spring's scholarship. Edith emailed Professor Havel, now department head, requesting information discreetly. He replied surprisingly fast. Marissa had indeed signed out the lab's alkaloid derivatives on Tuesday, citing research. Security footage could confirm. Sheriff Fisher secured warrants. Video showed Marissa entering the lab Wednesday evening, leaving with a small vial. When deputies arrived at the Crowder residence, Marissa was no longer bedridden but packing suitcases. In her drawer they found lab gloves and an empty vial matching the footage. She confessed partly. Jealousy, misguided prank intended only to make Lily's finger numb, not cause collapse. She'd feigned flu, then slipped into the auditorium through a side door at 6:15, lifted the glass dome while crew rearranged chairs, swabbed the needle, and vanished before volunteers returned. She'd assumed a trace dose wouldn't be lethal. Edith sat in the sheriff's office as Marissa's statement concluded. Bethany wept beside her, shocked. Edith wanted to hold Bethany, yet anger simmered. A brilliant young woman, warped by insecurity, nearly took a life. Thankfully, toxicologists administered an antitoxin cocktail based on the lab's inventory. By midnight, Lily opened her eyes. 1 week later, the community gathered again in the auditorium, this time for healing. Lily, pale but standing, was applauded as she spoke. "I forgive. I want our town to move forward supporting kindness, not envy." Edith, still president until succession, addressed the crowd. Our circle began with needles and thread, items small yet powerful enough to create or to harm, depending on the hand that wields them. Let us choose creation. The singer, liberated from evidence lockup, now occupied a museum vitrine with a new plaque. Symbol of resilience. The needle had been replaced, the poisoned one retained by the sheriff for trial. After the ceremony, Bethany approached Edith, eyes red. "I'm resigning from the circle. I failed to see my niece's turmoil." Edith squeezed her hands. "None of us saw. Return when ready." Cecil glided over, relief replacing suspicion. "I've decided to donate my Amazonian curios to the museum, under lock and key." "Wise," Edith chuckled. Doris arrived bearing a ledger. "Proceeds transferred, $22,000 for the library, in Lily's honor." The president's gavel felt heavier in Edith's grasp as she concluded the meeting. She'd planned to retire, but perhaps guidance was still needed. The circle would elect a new leader soon, yet she would remain mentor. That evening, home lamp glowing, Edith opened her sewing basket. She threaded a needle, mindful of its sharpness, and began stitching a quilt square in marigold fabric Lily had chosen for her dress. Each stab through cloth felt like a promise, vigilance woven with compassion. The faint scent of cotton, the whisper of thread, the quiet ticking of the mantel clock, ordinary details reclaimed after chaos. Outside, Oak Hollow's streetlights flickered on, illuminating branches swaying in late autumn wind. Somewhere, a siren wailed, a reminder, not a warning. Edith tied a knot, snipped the thread, and smoothed the square. One piece of many, stronger together, like a community restored. She closed her eyes, offered a silent prayer for Lily's full recovery, for Marissa's redemption, and for all who hold needles, literal or metaphorical, that they might mend rather than unravel the delicate fabric of human connection.